work straight away if it takes 10 seconds or so. So
that's exactly it. Feel free to give us a message. Make sure you can hear us all right. Just let us know that you're in here.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not sure if my background is mirrored. It's mirrored on my side, but I'm not sure if you guys are seeing webinar back to front or if it's the right way around. I'm not sure.
It's actually back. Yeah, it's back to front.
Back to front on your end as well. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we see a different version to what everyone else sees. I'll change it later on.
No, that's fine.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey guys, glad you can all hear us and can all use the chat. So this session obviously is just for the current customers under the Wunderbuild template. So obviously most of you have had your sort of one-on-one sessions and things like that already. So we're not treating this as like a pure training session because we're going to try and do these fairly regularly. Hopefully every 2 weeks, Jacob.
Yeah, every 2 weeks that's definitely a goal. So, regardless of, team members maybe not being able to come today, in a couple of weeks' time, they'll definitely be able to join in.
Yeah. Yeah, and the idea is that it's more of an Ask Me Anything Q&A session. If we get absolute donuts from you guys and you don't want to give us any information or any questions or anything like that, then we'll try and give you some tips and tricks. Or Jacob will.
Yeah.
He's the one that built these templates. So he's the one you want to, and we'll maybe give you a bit of a sort of a heads up of what's coming soon. Hopefully next month if you aren't already aware of another template on the way. Yeah, Dean, we can't hear or see you, so you guys won't be able to put your camera and your microphone on. It's just that you'll just be able to hear us. So, and yeah, Ali, they are recorded.
Yeah, definitely.
So some people that can't make it. Pretty surprised though, like the amount of people that registered and actually attending. I think we're almost at 100%, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's always good. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I mean normally webinar attendance is about 40%. So.
Yeah, I can see that, obviously everyone's pretty keen to, get some questions out. Like we're happy to answer them. Like today's session is going to be very much there'll be a bit of a Q&A. And like I said, if there's not too many questions, I'll end up just jumping into a few things that I know people are asking about.
Yeah, so Dean, I'm not sure if you heard me, Dean, there before. You won't be able to put your camera on. So this is more of it's a webinar effectively, but it's designed as sort of a questions training sort of session.
Yeah, so feel free to send through some questions through the chat as well. So if you've got like general questions about how it works, or you guys are stuck on particular issues that you're not sure how to work through, more than happy for you to send some information through the chat, and then I can show you on our screen how it works.
Hopefully now you guys can see the right logos in the right place, not mirrored.
Cannot hear you guys too well.
Can everyone else hear us okay? Oh, Dean's sorted. Awesome.
Perfect.
Brilliant. I might let you take it away then, Jacob. If we haven't got, or do you guys have questions up front? Do you want to put anything in the chat of some areas you particularly want to see? And that maybe, if we don't get too many questions, at least that maybe gives Jacob some direction, some things to focus on.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer some questions that you guys might be stuck on, some questions that your team might have as well. If I code a client, so we've just got Lauren here. If I code a client payment in Xero using Wunderbuild job number, does it reflect in Wunderbuild? That's a tricky one because we don't typically touch a lot on the connection between Xero and Wunderbuild, but I'd highly recommend reaching out to the Wunderbuild team, and they can help sort out anything to do with the linkage between the two platforms.
I'll message Blake now, Jacob. Lauren, I'll message someone who I think will probably know the answer to that, and hopefully will message me back during the session, and I'll pop the answer in.
Yeah, perfect. So integrate with any other software. So obviously Chris here is saying, does it integrate with any software at the moment? It does integrate with Xero and MyOb at this point in time. Obviously Wunderbuild, but that's that's it at the moment. I do know that there's been a lot of hype around the new AI release, and we're very excited about it as well, because I do believe that'll open up a lot more connection, because it's going to have Claude code built into Wunderbuild, so you'll actually be able to connect it to a lot more platforms, a lot more programs. Perfect. Here's a good one from Nick. Where can I find and select the height of drip rock wall linings? So I'm just going to share my screen in here.
And Chris, I assume that does Wunderbuild integrate with other platforms? I think that's my understanding of what your question was. Yeah.
Perfect. So everyone should be able to see the shared screen now. Just confirming you guys can all see that.
It's come up for me fine, so it should be for everyone else.
Perfect. All right, so I'll jump into quickly here. So if we go into the costings section, or even the takeoff section, is probably a better spot to start for Gyprock. So in here, I've obviously got just a standard set of plans uploaded. I haven't filled out anything else on the job. But if we scroll down and actually go to wall linings, we can even type in wall linings in here, or plasterboard, wall and ceiling linings. So we got number 45 here. So I'm just going to close that down. I'm going to quickly minimize everything just by jumping back and forth, and go down to number 45. So in here, 45 wall and ceiling linings. So we've got plasterboard walls per square meter is in here. And what this does, as we can also see in here, we can see that it's going to wall and ceiling linings, 10 mil plasterboard walls, but it's also going to the painting category. And it's calculating both of them. So if we go across onto, let's say, the floor plans. So even though this is you can still do a linear meter, even though this is a square meter item. So you click this linear meter tool, and then see here it says wall height. So we can say, well, it's 2400. We can put it in a couple of spots. And then if you need to go back, you can say, well, it's a bit taller in other areas. Let's see, your garage might be 2700. Now it's just reloaded there because I've just started the platform. Take off again. Just going back to where I was. Wall and ceiling linings. Add that back in at 2400. And then it also allows you that if you go, well, the garage is, like I was saying before, if that's 2700, once that loads in, we can go in and type back over this and say 2700 and just go into this garage area.
Yeah, so you kind of look at it as anytime you're doing a line, whatever that height that's there is what the line will be based off of.
Yeah,
so just be careful when you're going back and doing it that you are changing it if you are going in and doing a new line that's a different height.
Is there an option to print the cost codes from the template as a cheat sheet? So you can.
There's some other questions on this same topic. We might just want to close this one off first.
Oh yeah, sorry, I think I've missed a few of them at the start there.
So that was from Nick, and then I think there's so Nick's also asking, yeah, is there a way to do this in the costings without plans?
It doesn't. So the way Wunderbuild works, it needs some sort of plans to make the takeoffs work. What I recommend for people who don't have plans or anything like that is you just set up a blank PDF, just an empty PDF, and then you can draw on the plan depending on what you need on that.
Yeah, I think that closes that one out. Jacob,
perfect.
So.
Next one from Jesse, we got, is there a way to with the structure to reconcile provisional costs? Or is it a matter of doing negative variations on the difference? That one's more a contractual question, to be honest. We don't touch base hugely on that in our services, but to be honest, I couldn't give you the exact direction on that one. That one's definitely more of a Wunderbuild question as well, around how the platform actually works in regards to how provisional sums in the platform work. Is there an option? And then we got from Lauren here, is there an option to print the cost codes? So you can go into the settings within your platform, go cost codes, and you can see all of the cost codes in here. So yours might look slightly different to ours because it'll have these ones. And then what you can simply do is you can export these cost codes, and that'll show you and it'll give you an Excel spreadsheet with all of them listed on it, but you can also use this for reference. But this also has within Wunderbuild, you've also got a search function in here, which is quite useful. So if you're looking for like a bit of a cheat sheet, you can type in, plaster, for example. We can see, okay, solid plastering rendering is in lockup stage. We've got in fixings and fit off, plastering, plaster labor, plaster material is all in there.
When you export that, Jacob, will it show the breakdowns as well, like underneath it, or will it just show you the category headings?
It'll show it against a category heading and then the category within it next to each other. So it doesn't, you sort of lose that search function. But I find this is quite useful, this search function in here.
Yeah.
Just going through. The next one from Stuart is, can we incorporate your templates into existing takeoffs automatically, or do we need to start all over again? Just in case another version and transfer manually. So I do usually recommend starting an estimate from scratch and going here, because it brings in everything from the takeoff tab and links it automatically to the estimating tab. If you're doing an existing estimate and you want to do a new version on our templates, the only way to do that, if you've started without using our template in the first place, is to be by creating a new estimate altogether. But otherwise, if you did your version 1 with our template already and you started this way, you can just create a new version like you would normally and edit it and work through it normally. Oh, there we go. We've got Ali helping us out too there. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We don't touch too much when it gets into the job side of things. It's something that we want to get more involved in, though. But yeah, at the moment, it's more on the first part of the software, the estimating.
Yeah. At the moment, a huge part of our focus is on automating that estimating side and automating that whole process. But like I said, and like Julian said at the start, we are looking at releasing a new template within the next sort of month or so, which is pretty exciting. So for everyone that's a current member, they'll automatically get access to it as well. And that's a QBE template. So it's for that really quick like budget estimating. And it'll allow you to sort of put together an estimate or either a renovation or a new build, probably within, 10 to 30 minutes, depending on how big it is.
Leah, I'll send a registration link. I think that's what they'll have to use to join into the session. So I'll just send that booking link now.
Yeah.
I'll just send a copy now.
So for some of these questions as well, I've just got Christopher here asking about how to invoice. So Wunderbuild does have this really fantastic thing up here. There's this little help button, and they've got a whole knowledge base in there too. So you can open this up and you can search things like, how to invoice, for example, how to upload bills from Xero, or we can even say invoicing clients. So they've got quite a lot in here. Maybe we can go send invoice. Job management user guide. I believe it could actually be in there. So you can find quite a lot within their actual knowledge base as well.
Well, just shoot at the chat bot at the bottom. It's normally a good one for it. And just on that, guys, before we move off that QBE template topic there, when we say QBE template or QBE estimate, just if you can let us know, do you know what that means? Like in your head, does that you instantly go, okay, I know what a QBE template is, or is it? Yeah, because obviously it's designed as a quick estimate, effectively. Some people call it QBE, some people call it ballpark estimate, some people call it feasibility. So there's a whole heap of different wordings around what people call it. I'll wait for that to come through while we're continuing.
No, that's right. I can keep moving on. I can see I can see from Rod here throughout an estimate. I feel like I'm highlighting areas over and over. Can you show me how faster way of doing this? Yeah, so within the takeoff tab, everything's built to link everything. If you're going through the costings tab and individually doing each item, it'll feel very repetitive. But in the costings tab, when we've got items, cladding's always a good example. If we scroll down a bit, so we typically are recommending builders are going through this takeoff tab from start to finish to actually complete all their takeoffs. But within each of these takeoffs, it links to multiple items automatically. So you don't have to redo takeoffs when you're going through it.
Yeah, so if you just want to open one up, Jacob, there just to show sort of all the things it links to on any one of those.
So yeah, linear board's always a good one. So you can see here we got insulation coming through. We got the linear board itself per square meter, and this is also it as well. And then we've got delivery coming through and painting costs. So when we do this simple, if I just throw a little bit on this job, when we do a simple takeoff like this, it's going to calculate through to those items straight away. So you don't have to redo takeoffs, for painting, and then for cladding, and then go through it. And I'll show you that as soon as this costs.
Yeah, the beauty of this template, from my side, when I was at Building Back and Jacob was sort of showing me how everything works, is the amount of formulas he's put in here to work things out. So one measurement based on, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, so you can see here, so basically in the background, what it's doing, it's linking to all the different cladding types, and it knows that you're going to need insulation behind a cladding type automatically. So it's adding in insulation straight away, and it's reading throughout the takeoff tab. But then that same, quick takeoff in here, if we scroll down a little bit in here, we can also see linear board as a heading, and we can see it's also calculating 45.96 square meters of linear board, and then all the items involved in that too. So there's a few ways to look at this data. And then the other thing it goes in as well. So if I go down a bit further, we've got painting costs in there too. You can see something from our little takeoff before as well. You can see the wall and ceiling linings are automatically coming in too. We'll actually be able to see that the plasterboard automatically comes through from that quick little takeoff we did earlier. So you can see there, plasterboard to walls is coming through. And when we actually go to that painting section, that's where you'll see the painting of the weatherboard that's coming through. But if we scroll down further, you'll see the painting to internal walls that's coming through as well. So I hope that that helps you out there, Rod. So we've got a question here from Lauren. We have a 5-unit development, including road elements. Would it be correct in saying that I need to set the job up as a whole and somehow then break the costings into 5? Any tips in advance? So this is a really good one here. So we, especially with like townhouse developments or unit developments like this, so the way we typically recommend, and the way we see like much larger townhouse developers doing it as well, is they're doing each group of units as its own building. So if they're joined together, you treat it as its own estimate. In terms of breaking costs up, what much larger builders are doing, they're either dividing it by the square meter or potentially even setting locations against each takeoff. So it does make it a bit more complicated if you want to break it down per unit in the estimate. But Wunderbuild does have the power to actually set up locations. I can show you where that is. If we go into options, you can go edit locations in here, and the location can be unit 1. I'll add another location for unit 2. Save. And when we go into the actual costings itself, so we can go into something we've got, let's say this insulation item here, and go edit, we can actually select that goes against unit 1. In here. So it is possible within the platform. There's just a lot more work involved if you do want to break that up accurately.
So that would mean if you're doing it that way, Jacob, you'd effectively do your measurements through the costing section.
Yeah, you would have to do your measurements through the costing section, essentially manually adjust the quantities to be able to make that work instead of have the auto population for everything.
Yeah. Hopefully that answers the question there, Lauren. And separate question, Lauren, also where you have the separate tabs along the top of your demo job, is this a new version? Which tab? I mean, I'm fairly new to Wunderbuild, so I don't know what the normal version looks like from what you guys are seeing, but maybe Jacob has a special.
This is the new version of Wunderbuild. So they have the classic. So they're going to be, so Wunderbuild have already released this like new version of Wunderbuild. It's to change over to it. There's a button at the top. So if I can go switch back to classic here. So this is probably more what you're familiar with. So you just click this. If you go to the dashboard or anywhere, you can go try new Wunderbuild experience. As they've released this new version, it's a new look of Wunderbuild. I'm typically recommending using this new version because they're going to be making it, required for everyone to use this in probably another 6 months or so.
Yeah, Laura, I think it enables you to sort of click into things a little bit easier and sort of free up more screen real estate.
Yeah, it gives you a few options around the estimating too. You can go like a wide view in here as well, and then select each option in there, or go back to like the default view. So it gives you a few options for how to actually look at the estimate as well.
And then Lauren's saying, so would you just times the costings by 5 effectively? I suppose you probably could do that and but then you obviously wouldn't be able to break it down per unit, Lauren, if you're doing it that way, right?
Yeah, so obviously with the townhouse thing, I would definitely, if they're townhouses, definitely build it as one. Like if they're individual units and they're not actually connected to each other, but they're the same unit type, then yes, I would times that by 5. So it really depends. The way I recommend to do it would really depend on whether they're joint and being built as one. So the reason I say to do it in an estimate as one whole estimate when it's being built as one, because it'll help you when it comes to ordering the materials, booking in the trades, and doing all of that back end stuff. So I've got a question here from Ali as well. So would you recommend it then for units and townhouses, do a separate costing job for each unit? So I think that's sort of covered base on that a little bit as well. So yeah, doing it per building is our recommendation for townhouses. So you might have, let's say you're doing a townhouse development with 3 different buildings. One might have 5 units in it, one might have 3, and one might have 2. So you would do them as separate buildings. I mean, obviously you're always lucky if you've got 2, which are exactly the same, 2 3-unit ones. You've only got to do them once and essentially copy it to run it as a job. And then when you're ordering materials and you're paying trades and you're doing all of those things, you can run them as their individual jobs and say each building is its own job, and it's up to its own stage depending on what's being completed and what trades we use. And then the last thing you need to do if you're running one of those types of projects is actually have a job for the site. So have site works, and that might include driveway works, landscaping, pathways, and all of those things. Next one on this list we've got from Nick is pricing through costings, assemblies, lookup. Can wall linings and other assemblies be found, therefore not having to use takeoffs? So the way we've built it in Wunderbuild is the takeoffs tab is a necessary evil. It sort of has to be worked. It has to be used for it to automatically populate all the different areas. So that plastering one's obviously a good example. If we go back down to it in number 45, wall and ceiling linings. So it does connect to the wall and ceiling linings item and the painting items. So I recommend entering a blank page in here, or even a grid page. Grid pages are always great that are scaled. If that's absolutely no way or the team can't do that, you would have to then override the individual items and you would lose that ability where it auto-populates multiple different sections. So you can still go through the costing sections and fill it out. So if I go into 45 wall and ceiling linings in here, I can go edit, and I can say plasterboard ceilings. I can completely override this recipe in here by clicking the calculator and saying, well, I want, 20 square meters of ceiling. And I would go accept. So it still works in this way, but it does lose that link. So it won't automatically populate that painting category as well. And then you've got another question here. What if you don't want all aspects followed through? So that's sort of similar to this. You can have a look at what, if I go back out. So if I go back into the takeoff tab, back into 45 again, and if we don't want everything linked in, what you're saying, that's what I understand you're saying. There's a few ways to do it. If you're saying, well, I don't want the painter to automatically be populated, you can edit it in here. I believe you can delete that link there as well. So you can either delete it in there and then that'll no longer link it to it. If I go cancel, you can also go into costings and zero it out in here. So when you do your check after you've done your takeoffs, you can go through here and say, when you obviously finalizing everything, we can go through, go to painter. You can also go edit and then say, well, I don't want any internal painting. And you can zero it out here as well. Perfect. Got a couple of here, a couple more questions too. Can I look up through the assembly lookup at the top for RHS, like timber framing and steel? Yeah, so you're talking about like adding in recipe items for the structural steel section. So if we go into, I'm going to quickly add some structural steel in here. So if I go edit in here, obviously, the way we've set it up, and we've got a note at the top here saying structural steel recipes use assembly list to add items. So if I add in like an SHS, just as an example, I can say I want a 75 by 75 in here. And then it's going to give me some options in here as well. So you can sort of see if I zoom in a little bit. You can sort of see it's already giving us some options. So we can get 75 by 75 by 4 mil by, and then we can type in a height. So we might say 3 meters. And you can see here, it gives us quite a few options in 3 meters. So I can select this one. If I want it, I might want to add in 2 of them and go update. And if you're looking for all of the items that are included, so you want to know, well, what options do I have to choose from? I'm usually recommending opening up as a new tab. So what I've done there is just opened up a new tab and having this on either a separate screen or on the side, and you can go into settings, assemblies, and we can look through here. So I can even say SHS, and we can see we've got 75 by 75s, we've got 89 by 89s, and you got 100 by 100s as options. And then you can essentially use this wording as well if you want to copy it into your estimate. So I could just copy that and add an item in here based on that wording. So I can go just copying the heading there to add an extra item in, pasting that description that I just copied in, selecting that, and then now that's in our estimate connected to that recipe or that assembly. Going through, Carl's just got a question around adding the one for yes. Yeah, so we've had a few questions around this. Basically, there's mathematical formulas in the background that says if you say yes to something, then it will add that item in, or it'll add products in based on that. So for example, where it says renovation project one for yes, what that's doing in the background is it's adding in a disconnection of property. It's adding in some overhead disconnections if it's required, and it's also adding in the plumbing disconnection. So if it's a renovation project, it adds in those 3 products automatically. And you can go to add in one, you just use this count tool as well. And then you can click 1 anywhere on the page. And then that'll autofill in here and autofill out those items required on what type of job it is. And there's obviously quite a few questions like that. If you go down a bit further as well around concreting too, that's a good one, because we've got like questions around what type of concrete it is. So if it's a 20 MPa, 25 or a 32, basically what you're saying is, yes, it's a 25 MPa, and you would select 1 on there for that.
It's effectively like typing 1 in, but just in the way that we've had to build it, you just have to click on the plan to enable that 1 to be selected.
Yeah, exactly.
In the same way that you would do, like, place where the downlights are, place where the GPOs are, count the doors, for example, the same sort of tool that you're using, which is obviously just a 1 rather than 10 internal doors, something like that.
Yep. Next one on the list is about bell ratings. So in terms of bell ratings, you will have to adjust the recipes in here. So for example, I'm going to quickly add some eaves, because I know eaves is one. You change it from like a 4.5 mil up to a 6 mil thick sheet if it's in a high bell area. So if I go back down to cladding areas, we can go into eaves in here. We can select a width. So I'm just going to select a 600 wide to add it. And once again, we can see that that links to quite a few items in here. So it links to the cladding, the delivery, and the painting costs. So now if we go into costings, we'll need to adjust what's required for that specific bell rating. And to do that, we go, let's say cladding and eaves, and we can edit it here. We're obviously going to follow these headings in here as well. I'm going to go down a bit. I'm going to find the eaves section. So scrolling down a bit. There we go. We've got eaves and external ceiling heading here. And we can also see that that's pre-filling at 30.2. To now change this to that bell requirement, we would open up this recipe by clicking the green button here. Go and say, we can see eave lining is here. If I zoom out just a little bit, and I know it's probably not huge for you guys, but it does help if we.
Just the way the webinar platform sort of puts the screen, it sort of makes it a bit smaller than it needs to be.
Yeah, and we can see in here, so at the moment, it's FC eave lining, Hardy Flex 24 by 600 by a 4.5. So if we look for a 6.0 instead, I'm going to get rid of some of the information to see if that comes up. Hardy Flex 6. There we go. FC cladding Hardy Flex 6 mil. We can select it as the 24 by 12 instead. So this is the item that we want to be selecting in its place. and that will replace the pricing and do all of that automatically. And then you might want to change, if you want to change the trims, you can do that exactly the same as well, and just go update. And then that'll update all of your orders, that'll update all of the requirements for that bell rating. Next one we've got on the list is for Stuart. Here we've got, sorry, I didn't hear if you answered this. Do you have templates for quote requests, variation emails, etc., already made up? Do these need to be done manually to suit each builder? So yeah, that's a lot of the back end stuff in terms of building out the actual quote request email. We do have cost codes built in here to help you do the quote requests. So something we've built out recently within the detailed template is you can do either cost codes in here. So you can, let's say you want to do carpentry. You can see all the different carpentry broken down into each of its stages. So you can say, well, I want to send out for framing or subfloor or decking. You might also turn around and say, oh, I just want to send out all carpentry. So you can go carpentry here in the cost type, and then it's going to show all of the carpentry items within the entire estimate. I can hide the zero value items as well. But then when we're doing the quote request, so jumping into that a bit further, if we're doing the quote request, so I can say I want a quote request for the installation of this linear board that we said. We can say quote items, create quote request. You can see carpentry labor is coming through, and we can say, could you please quote for the installation of linear board to this house. So this is where you'll have to add some of your own. And I've seen it done a couple of ways. A couple of builders have like either like a spreadsheet on the side that they just copy and paste into here, depending on how they're quoting. And then you can add attachments too. So you can add those takeoffs that we've done previously too by just typing in like a linear. There we go. Perfect. That's already ticked. I can go attach. I can also add the plans that we've uploaded straight through here. So we don't actually have to jump in and out of the platform, drag attachments in and do all of that as well. Once this generates, so it's just generating the 180 linear board takeoff in there. As we can see, the takeoff is attached. And this is how it shows for your client, for your carpenter. So this is where we've done our takeoff. This is how many square meterage that equates to. And then we can also, if you want, you can go add plans. And we can select all the documents that we've uploaded. Close. And we can go carpentry. Quote request. There we go. We can go save, and we can then send that to your carpenter as well. So depending on who you've obviously selected as your supplier up the top. I think that's everything sort of about that quote request. The next one we've got on this list, and then just measure using the item you want, like strip footing. Yes, I think you're referring back to the one for yes situation.
Yeah,
Carl?
same. This is Carl, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to quickly click send on that so it goes off and disappears. So if we go back to the takeoff, so yeah, that's exactly how it works. So you select basically the parameters of what's required by going one for yes. So we can say one for yes, which I've already done in here under concrete. We said one for yes for the 25 MPa footings and piers. And then, yeah, you'd go through and you'd say, well, I want to add in, if I go to the engineering, I want to add a strip footing length. I might add a strip footing to this little step in here. And then that loads in, and it obviously links to quite a few different items as well. Got strip footing width. and then strip footing depth. I can add that in too. So I can say, well, maybe it's we could say a 500 deep.
So you can see there from what Jacob's doing. If you don't have that directly on the plan to do it, you can just draw on a plan and do it at the same measurement that you need, and it will work the same way.
Correct. Yeah, you can just do it on a blank page or something like that. Yeah. Obviously, something that this is doing in the background in the costing sections, it's working out minimums, it's working out, what's actually required for that strip footing. So it's quite powerful using that takeoff tab, and it's definitely worth it, even if it is a blank set or a blank page that you're doing the takeoffs on.
Yeah, it'll just minimize your work later on. Like you can see what the amount of formulas and stuff that Jacob has put in there to be able to do a lot of that working out for you. And Carl, don't be sorry. That's what this whole session is meant to be. It's meant to be you asking questions. So
yeah. It's all about teaching you guys how to do estimating in this template. We understand there's a lot of detail in it, and there's a lot of information there to process. So the easier we can make it for you guys, the better. And this is why we started this session, and this is why actually Julian said, I think we really need to start doing these sorts of training sessions as group training sessions, because there's an added benefit for everyone asking these questions.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have the one-on-one session, you kind of go away, you work on it for a bit, and you only retain 70, 80%, maybe even less, depending on the individual. For me, probably 50%, because I'm awful at just listening to someone talk. And then, you kind of forget that things can be done, and, there's too much to take in. So these sessions are really good just to, check in and see how you're going and see if you're missing anything or doing things the wrong or right way. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, it's meant to obviously help each other out. We can see I've got Rod here asking about lifts as well. So I don't think we actually do have any lifts built into the template at all. We do have a lift cost code built into the template already. So you can add it into one of the other sections, or you can create a custom section for it. So if we go options and we go create a new category, add costings, category name, we can call this lift. We can say lift cost to supply and install lift. And then we can select all the products or requirements. So once again, you've got those unit types, which were those options in that, what we talked about earlier. We can select the cost code. So we can go lift. There you go. We can see lifts coming through there. Quantity of one. And we can put in a cost of, let's just say $40,000.
I'll take the stairs, mate. It's fine.
And that's probably considered a relatively smaller lift for that sort of price as well. So yeah, you can set everything up against there, and we can go add that item in. And this works for any custom sections you're looking to add in. So now we can see lift is in here. So you can move that along anywhere you want it within here too, just by dragging it up. Let's say we want it up a bit higher, might want it up near the structural steel, because you're probably going to need to add a decent amount of structural steel in there. So you can just drag and drop it. I've just gone a little bit too far. Structural steel. And that'll just populate in there. I think I dropped it too early. I did.
Yeah, if you guys have any feedbacks of things that you want in the template that isn't there, definitely just reach out.
Oh, 100%. That's why we built this community of builders as well. Is all of our builders, we find is each builder is an expert on one particular thing, and if we get feedback from each expert from each area, we can build a template in here that's perfect in every way. So every builder's like, oh, I'm an expert at installing concrete slabs. I've done it. I was a concreter before I was a builder. This is everything I know about this. We get builders coming back who had 20-man crews just installing cladding. So they come in and say, oh, this is everything we know about cladding, and this is all the information we needed to do, and this is what's really going to benefit all of the builders that are subscribed as well. So we love that sort of feedback. When builders actually come back and they're going, oh, this could be better, or we want this done in this way, this is why, that's really great feedback for us, and we can go through and improve it in more ways.
Yeah. So if you find that you're constantly editing things and stuff, obviously your own pricing is obviously always going to change a little bit, but if you find you're constantly editing stuff, like there might be an option where Jacob can build it into the template, so you don't have to do that, depending on the type of area it's in. And let me know, because I can convince him. Just like I got him to convince him to do these sessions and to do sort of a sales webinar, and then we've got the QBE template. So
yes, Julian is very persuasive, so I'll give him that.
You guys are going to love that QBE template, by the way, when that comes out. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited by that one too. I mean, initially it wasn't something we were really going to ever build or do. Julian obviously came on board and said, this is something I think a lot of builders are asking for and very excited for. And then he got me really excited for it and said, okay, this is something we need to do. I'm very excited to give that to obviously all you guys and have you guys using that too. And I think you guys will absolutely love it, because it's one of those really quick like budgeting tools that you can use when you have that initial meeting with a client. You're going, oh, how much is this actually going to cost? We'll throw something together in like 10, 15 minutes. We can have a look, and it's actually going to spit out and show you, a lot of the products that are all included and automatically allowed for as well. Yeah, we'll release a video on that one as well before it comes out. We got one more.
Jacob.
Yeah, we got one more here from Carl. We said, my last question is my takeoffs. I want to measure for timber framing, but there's an empty heading. Yeah, so there are some areas in the takeoff section where it won't have headings. So everything with items within the heading, so timber framing is a good example where it doesn't actually have items within it. So it just means that there's not products linked to multiple sections throughout it. And the heading's really there to save and organize your takeoffs. To do things like timber frame takeoffs, you would go into costings and follow through the list this way. So we'd go into timber framing, number 17, go edit. Zoom out a little bit. It's really made this description really small now that I've added in the location as well. So apologies if you can't see the description much, but I'll take it slow. So we've got like supply and install wall framing, MGP10, 90 by 45. This is a good example. That's a 1.2. Okay, supply and install wall framing, MGP10, 90 by 45, 2.4. So this, once again, there's probably like 200 or 300 recipes built in the background for all the different options. So you can open up your assemblies and go timber framing, and we can see if we click through each one, we can see that we've got 190 mil posts, 70 by 35 MGP10, 70 by 35 MGP12. It goes through all the different sizes as well. So if we're saying we want to do a 90 by 35, let's say an MGP12 instead, so we've got options there for both. We can copy through any of this text. I can say I want it as a 2.7. I can simply copy that, paste it in here instead, use that item. So that's swapped that item over and it swaps all the products in the background of the recipe too. So you can actually see the correct timber framing items are coming through here, as well as labor, depending on the height and all of those things. And then to do the takeoff and link that in, we can now click this calculator. You have to add a takeoff because it doesn't have a takeoff link to it. Category, I usually recommend keeping it in the same category. You don't have to categorize them. I like to. So I can go timber framing. So these all match the actual headings. Go create. And then we simply just do the takeoff. So when you go in later and have a look at it, you'll actually see that this is being created within that takeoff tab as well. Just saving that there, accept. And there, that link's in there too. We have a question here from Sam as well. If you aren't using a section for your job, your pricing, should I just delete it or change it to not used so I don't get so the links don't get confused? So yeah, I usually recommend marking everything as like for the sections that aren't needed. So for example, decking, going optional, options, and then not used. That completely strips it from the estimate in its entirety and just gives you the option to add it back in if you ever need to. So if you have variations or you have an alteration to the estimate later, so let's say you're doing version 1 right now, but version 2 might include a deck, it gives you the option to add that in really easily later because those links stay there when you just say not used, but it's not adding in the item in the actual estimate. Perfect. I think that's most of the big stuff, to be honest. That was pretty good. There's some pretty good questions there, obviously, around how the template worked.
Yeah. I don't know if I got an answer before from the QBE side, guys. But yeah, if I said to you QB estimate, are you guys all across what that is? Does it create confusion? Because we're trying to figure out, obviously, from a naming side, like we want to call it a QB template, but do we need to call it a ballpark template or QB/ballpark template? Like, what's the terminology that you guys would normally use with your clients and yourself internally?
Yeah, like, would we call it a budget estimate template, perhaps? You know, that's always a good one.
Probable costing, feasibility. Yeah, see, everyone calls it something different. It's hard to what the name is going to be to.
I don't think I've talked to any builders yet that have all had the same names for it. So that's obviously makes it difficult because we want to make it, you know, we obviously want to name it and call it something that everyone's going to say, oh, I know exactly what this is. I mean, I do like feasibility report. That's a good one as well.
Yeah, we're thinking about a month, Jacob, for that.
Yeah.
Do you want to give any insight into how it's broken up at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I can show you a little bit about how it works, and you know, perhaps you guys can give us your feedback as well.
Yeah, that'd be great, guys, because obviously we're going to launch it. It's going to be something you guys are going to have access to as soon as it's launched. So, if you got any feedback on it? I didn't want to push him into doing a demo. I probably should have messaged him before, and then I would have pushed him. But
no,
yeah,
that's fine. So basically, I've got the same set of plans. I've just uploaded into this one. This is our QBE template, and this is what we've been building out at the moment. A lot of it has questions about, you know, what's included. You know, we've got a scale test, but it's got general questions. You know, is this a new build? You know, is it a renovation project? So I've just called this a renovation, said I'm going to base it off of the kitchen and pantry. So I've said 1 for a renovation, mid-range spec or a high-range spec. Going through ground floor general questions. So it's going to ask, you know, is there a new slab to the ground floor? So if I said, well, this is all the new slab, I would say, once again, this is a 1 for yes type situation. And this one, they've released some new features within the platform. So we're able to go 1 in here for yes if we want to override that and say, yes, I want a new slab. Accept for the ground floor. And then we're going through ground floor wall height. I've said it's 2.4. You can obviously change that to anything you want. And this is a pre-filled out one. So I've already filled out this, you know, and we got first floor general questions. And if you don't have a first floor, you'd skip past it. Same with second floor. You know, there'll be some demo items in here, but we've got like general kitchen questions. So the kitchen is what I've done here. As I've said, is the kitchen on the ground floor, first floor, second floor? And it's just saying 1 for yes for each one. I've said ground floor. And then it's going to ask general questions. So what I've done is the kitchen square meterage. And this links to considerably more items because it's automating a lot of those tasks. So I've set in here the square meterage, the external walls, the internal walls here. We've gone through and added in, some cabinetry items, and then the doors is all the questions that you need to be able to do that takeoff. And I've done a similar thing in here for the butler's pantry too, saying it's on the ground floor. Yes, I'll put the square meterage in there, added in external wall, as you can see, internal walls there as well. Just highlighting in there. And then we've also gone through and gone, we want some cabinetry in here, and then melamine shelves on that side. And what that's doing in the background is it's pre-populating this costing side.
The same thing as the previous one did, just much more simpler to go through, obviously, because you don't want to spend the same amount of time when you're just trying to get an idea if the client has the money, go through it.
This one also pre-populates some like general inclusions and exclusions straight away too, from the way we've worded our costing items. So this is very much like a quick, like this is what's included in these areas. This is what's been included in this quote. Something that's pretty exciting in it is that you can go in now in that kitchen area. I can actually go in and see the detail behind it. So we can see slab works, because I said, yes, it's a new slab. It's including slab works to that area. We can see in timber, under the timber framing section, we can go down a bit further. We can say wall allowance, structural / external wall is adding in. And then we got wall allowance, non-structural / internal walls adding in too. We can go timber frame. So termite protection, if you're in an area without termite protection and say, you might be on like Victoria and things like that, it's very easy for you to go, well, I'm just going to delete that completely. Say, I don't want that in my estimate. We got other things, it's going saying we're adding insulation in here to the ceiling areas, wall and ceiling linings, flooring, supply and install flooring per square meter allowance. So this pre-builds out your what you're going to show your client as well. And it'll actually give them the PS allowances broken down into each room. And what we find doing it this way is it's really beneficial when you're actually sitting down. You can see other things like electrician, but it's really beneficial when you're actually sitting down and saying, this is how much each room costs, rather than your whole build is going to cost this much. You either do it or you don't. This gives you a little bit of flexibility around. So you'll be able to see, the bathroom is $30,000 or $40,000. You can go, oh, well, this is over budget. So let's remove the bathroom out of this job. And then we can proceed with getting plans done or getting the detailed estimating done from there, the one that actually takes a lot of time.
Yeah, and if you guys know anything about Jacob, you spent much time with him on sessions at all, he's extremely detailed. So when he said he was doing the first detailed template, I said to him he's mad. That was when I was at Build Exact at the time, and Jimmy's got a question around that, so I'll come to that in a second. But yeah, just incredible detail. And even with these, like when I've sort of worked at Build Exact and I've seen some estimates, we might create a sort of a QBE template and stuff. It's very much just do a measurement, supply and install rate, bam. And that's the idea of what they see it as. Whereas Jacob has built a lot more detail based on those simple measurements that go through. Be able to populate it. So you've still got a very good understanding. It's not a complete, as I think it was Brian said, stand in the dark. So you've got a little bit more detail to go with so that you're a little bit more accurate in terms of where you're going to push.
Exactly. And you can break down these items. So as you can see, there's like massive recipes. The QBE template every recipe is huge because it's all getting all this different information from different areas, essentially, so that you have to do the smallest amount of takeoffs that you could possibly do. And that if you're looking for that detail and you're going, where did you actually get this wall framing allowance non-structural internal wall price from? We actually give you the detail in here as well. If you click the recipe, you can see all the different products that it's calculating and why it's calculating and the guesses and assumptions that it's making in there. And we can see that it's adding in wall framing and ply bracing and carpentry labor. And it's automatically even putting it against their cost codes too.
Yeah, so just extreme amount of detail that's coming in now. I would argue that from what I've seen over the last 7 years of working with Build Exact, obviously now working with Jacob, I would say that most builders' estimates aren't this detailed for a full estimate.
Yeah, probably.
So you've got, so what I think you said about 10, 15 minutes for a reno and 30 or so minutes for a new build using this?
Yeah, that'd be about right. And then you can just click preview here as well. So the no specifications aren't necessary to fill out on this template. You can just click preview. So it has your regular quote letter. We can change this, you can say a budget estimate at the top, or a feasibility report is a good one. And then it says the costings in here. So you can actually see what I've done is I've stripped the costing out of the item, and it's going in the kitchen. It includes slab footing and pier allowance. It includes these items. So it's going through in detail for your client and auto building out that specification in here too.
Then you can have that conversation with a client when you're in this sort of feasibility sort of check stage, and sort of say, well, this is what this is probably going to cost you, and this is how it's broken up, and not just say, hey, the bathroom is 55 grand. Well, what's 55 grand? What parts of it?
And they can go. You can go through areas, and they could turn around and say, oh, well, I don't want a new oven or anything like that. Let's remove that out of the estimate. Let's remove this, and it gives you a much closer estimate. So you can get within a couple, a few percent of what it's actually going to cost you, rather than it 10% either way. We're not really sure what the price is. This actually breaks it down and goes, this is exactly what's happening. This is what you're getting. This is what we've allowed for in this feasibility report, or this allowance or budget estimate. We've allowed for these things as an assumption of what you want, but you can turn around and say, no, we don't want these items, or we want to change these items. And then it's automatically building out the allowances too. So you can see in here, so the client will get to see this like they would within their actual estimate, and they'll actually say, oh, you've actually allowed for a supply of a 600 mil oven at $800. And that's what this one's done. We've allowed for, a door at this. We've allowed for a double kitchen sink at $780. So it gives them that ability too. And then they've got the summary here broken down into each room. So we've got kitchen and butlers for the price of each one. So they could very easily turn around and say, oh, you know what, this is a bit expensive for me. Can we remove the butler's pantry works out of this quote? And that's great. We can do that. To do that, you would just go into costings, go to butlers, and then click no longer required. So you don't even have to go back and delete the takeoffs. You can just say not used. And then that strips it from the estimate in its entirety. And now it's just a kitchen quote.
Yeah. We've got a couple of questions here. We might zip through some of these, if that's all right, Jacob. So
yeah, of course.
This might have been before we jumped into the QBE from Carl. If we want to alter an estimate and not lose the original workings, how do we do this?
Perfect. So I can show it on this version as well. So regardless of it being a budget estimate or a detailed estimate, it's the same way of doing it within Wunderbuild. You can create a version up the top here. So you click this create version button, and we might call this, version 2, or you might call this
Butler's Pantry without Butler's Pantry.
Yeah, without butlers. Oops, all capitals.
This is what I'm saying when I say he's very detailed. I wouldn't have given a monkeys if it was in capitals, where he has to go back and delete that and change it to be correct. It's a good thing to have as an estimator. You want your estimators to be detailed. You don't want them to be just going, oh, yeah, I think that's roughly about right.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of estimating companies, as well as worked for a lot of builders. And I don't like throwing money at things or guessing things. I'm very much a detailed person. I like to say, this is what it's going to cost, and that's how we've built these templates out. I like to know that this is going to be accurate and actually say, this is what you need to be ordering, that it's that accurate. That's the level of detail that I like to build all of my own systems in.
Yeah. And this template next month at some point, Rod? Hopefully.
Yeah. So we're looking at I'm hoping about 4 weeks from now is sort of where we're looking at for this template to be released.
And Angela, so in terms of changing labor rates to your own rates, there's no easy way of doing it at the moment, because obviously anytime we update it. The way the template works is that it's effectively a live update from us as we update it.
Yeah. If I go through though, either of the estimates, if I go to the detailed estimating template, you can search up, like what we were showing before, you can search up things like carpentry throughout the entire thing, and it will show you all of the carpentry items, and you can adjust those items with costings against them. So if we go in here and we go carpentry, we can go in here and say, okay, we've got cladding and eaves in there, and it's going to show all the items related to that. So we can go edit, and we know that carpentry is in here. We can open this up and you can edit pricing in here. So to edit pricing that's already linked to our pricing, you can unlink it. So you go unselect our pricing, and you can change this to $80, for example. So one of the things I would be cautious of in Wunderbuild, and this is something we've noticed and brought up to their team as well, is that with the search function, it's hiding the others. So when you're saving these recipes, sometimes it's deleting the other products out of it. So usually if you're going in and actually editing it, I would go and change this to, and remove that filter from it completely, and go and change this now that you've removed the filter. So now that you've removed the filter, you can go in and edit it. Once that goes in, sorry, it's just loading. So there's a little bit of work, but I have brought that up to the Wunderbuild team to see if they can alter that and adjust the way that that whole filter system works. So now we go edit, go to something like Axon, carpentry labor. We would unlink this product, change this to, let's say, $80 an hour, and go update. So you can do that throughout. So it's quite easy to change and update in that perspective. And you go
yes, and what I've seen, like I would probably just suggest having like a little process document that you go through, like a workflow, like, or a checklist or something like that, and then just go through and just read, you know, like I said, it, 10 seconds per item. You can get it done pretty quickly. I might just grab Jimmy's and then maybe we'll call it a day, Jacob, just to sort of keep it, at sort of that hour sort of mark. So Jimmy, I'm not working for Wunderbuild. I'm working with Jacob. Obviously, Campbells Estimating. But yeah, obviously, probably seeing my face with the Wunderbuild, if you're familiar with me from Build Exact, probably seems a bit weird for some people. So yeah, I mean, I was doing that role with partners in Build Exact, doing a lot of the webinars and all that kind of stuff for about 7.5 years. And yeah, I think for me personally, I just needed a change. There were some things that I couldn't influence anymore at Build Exact, and some things that I was frustrations with and things like that. And I've been speaking to Jacob for a little while, and it kind of moved pretty quickly. And I'm a much more, as we've seen with some of the stuff in the last month, we've done a sales-led webinar, we're doing the training sessions, we're moving into QBE stuff. Something that Jacob hadn't really done in this well before. So I like the ability to be able to come in. We'll do something at a 7 out of 10, and if it is rubbish, we'll learn and we'll improve, or we just won't do it again. And that's what I like doing. You can do way more by being that kind of person than trying to perfect absolutely every single thing at every single point, which then takes 2 years to do anything. So that was, for me personally, that was just something I was finding with Build Exact. It's just very hard to get anything moving, because you got to speak to 15 people and overseas and so it was just hard for me to influence anything kind of moving forward. Whereas I'm just like, I want to do it and see and learn and kind of go from there. And a big part of that was connecting Build Exact to partners, and I think that's a huge thing, because as you've seen with you guys, like you're all connected into Jacob's system, and the more I think software companies allow partners to work with their builders, the more successful the builders will be, the more successful the partner will be, and the software company as well. And that was something I was just really struggling with from Build Exact perspective. Very, very different from Wunderbuild. Obviously, still want to work with Build Exact, still want to get that moving. They're a bit behind in terms of where they need to be in terms of the software feature set and sort of the partner strategy. But I think they'll come good at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Like obviously, we like the two platforms. They're both great platforms. We're finding definitely some improvements and some of more advancements with some of the templates we've been able to build in Wunderbuild, but we definitely hope to be able to do that sort of stuff, within many platforms, including Build Exact. Obviously Julian coming on board, a big part for me as well. Like he's really helped give us a bit of structure around our business and give us a bit of a direction on where the business needs to go in. And that's really a big part of whether, I guess, whatever we're calling it, whether it be a feasibility report or QBE template, is coming from too, is Julian's coming in and going, this is what the builders are asking for, let's do it. And with being a small business, we have the ability to go, yep, you say to do it, let's do it. Just straight away. There's no hurdles, there's no issues, there's no approval process. It's just very much, if you get something through to Julian well enough, we'll have a discussion about it, and it typically ends up being like, okay, well, let's build this or let's improve this part of the system.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys like the QBE template, because I've very much backed that on my side. But from already, like, speaking to people that have just signed up recently, love it. People that are currently using the template seem to love the idea. So I think that's going to be used massively, because the amount of conversations you can have with people and just get a sort of that feasibility QBE sort of estimate like out the door straight away is going to be massive. Yeah,
I do foresee it probably being used more than the detail estimate, to be honest. I think the QBE template is going to be used, very early on in the job. You'll use it for pretty much every job. And then when you actually win the work and you're ready to go through and do all that detail and go, this is exactly how much of everything we need, or, you're ready to process through that, you'd then go in and do that. And you would build out a new estimate on the detailed estimating template.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. All right, guys. Well, like I said, we'll probably try and run these every 2 weeks or so. So what will happen is once we get these kind of up and running more regularly, you'll get the same email invite through with the same sort of system, Demio and whatnot, at least for now, until we might be using a different webinar platform further down the line. But right now it'll be Demio. And yeah, if you have any questions in the meantime, obviously don't wait for these sessions. Like, please feel free to send them through.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We're here to help. So, if you guys get stuck on anything, we don't want you sitting around for 2 weeks going, I'm just twiddling my thumbs. I can't proceed with this estimate. I don't know what I'm doing. We do want you to go, okay, yeah, how do we do this? How do we proceed with this? With all these questions. And I know I've been in touch with a few of you already. I've been talking back and forth. So definitely happy to continue that.
Awesome, guys. This is recorded, so we'll get it up on the YouTube page, Jacob, yeah?
Yep. Yeah, we'll get it up on the YouTube page so that everyone can view it, or you can share it with your team as well if they've got questions about it.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Appreciate your time. Have a great rest of the week.
Easy. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks.